You know how to tell a story using the simple past. The man opened the door. Then, the phone rang. It's simple. It's clear. But what if you want to say that the phone was ringing before he opened the door? How do you talk about a past that happened before another past? You need a special grammar time machine. It's called the past perfect, and it's the secret to telling complex, sophisticated stories with a clear timeline. Welcome to our new advanced series, English Grammar Unlocked. I'm your host, Scarlett. Today, we are becoming detectives to investigate the timeline of a mystery. In doing so, we will master the past perfect and the past perfect continuous tenses. In this episode, we will turn a grammar lesson into a crime scene investigation. First, we will join a detective as he reconstructs the events of a mystery, learning how these tenses build a timeline of the past. Second, we will master 10 essential vocabulary words for investigation and storytelling. And finally, for our language focus, we will break down the specific jobs of the past perfect and the past perfect continuous so you can use them like a true detective. Part 1. The crime scene. The past perfect simple. Our story begins on a dark and stormy night. We meet our hero, Detective Miles. He is a brilliant investigator, famous for his ability to see the past just by looking at the details of the present. He receives a call and drives to a large, silent mansion outside the city. A crime has just occurred. Let's establish our main point in the past. Detective Miles arrived at the mansion at exactly 10 p.m. This is our reference point, a simple past action. Everything we are about to discover happened before he arrived. Detective Miles walks through the front door. The house is quiet. He looks at the living room. He can see that the killer had already left the mansion before the police arrived. The action of leaving was completed before the action of the police arriving. He moves to the victim's desk in the library. He sees a piece of paper and a pen. It's clear that the victim had written a letter, but the letter was not finished. Miles thinks he hadn't finished it before the killer interrupted him. The action of writing the letter was a completed action in the past, before the main events of the crime happened. Miles then notices an open window behind a large curtain. The rain had stopped, but the windowsill was wet. He realizes this is how the suspect got out. He thinks to himself, the suspect had escaped through the window long before anyone found the body. Let's pause our investigation here. This is our first clue. The grammar tense Detective Miles is using in his mind is the past perfect simple. The structure is had plus the past participle. The past participle for regular verbs is the ed form, like left or finished. For irregular verbs, it's the third form, like written or seen. The main job of the past perfect simple is to talk about an action that was completed before another action in the past. It creates a clear timeline. Think of it like this. Event. A happens first, then event B happens. If we are talking from the perspective of event B, we use the past perfect for event A, event A. The killer had left. Event B, the police arrived. The past perfect is the grammar of the past before the past. Part 2. The interrupted action. The past perfect continuous. Detective Miles has a good idea of the sequence of events, but now he needs to understand what the victim was doing in the moments right before the crime. He is looking for an action. In progress. He looks at a comfortable chair by the fireplace. An open book is on the floor next to it. The book is open to page 50. Miles thinks the victim was relaxing. He had been reading for some time before the killer entered. This is a new tense. This is the past perfect continuous. Its structure is had plus been plus verbing. What is its job? Its main job is to talk about the duration of an action that was happening up until another action in the past interrupted it. The focus is on the continuous nature of the prior event. He didn't just read the book, a completed action. He had been reading it, an ongoing action that was stopped. Miles continues his investigation. He sees a cold cup of tea on a small table. There is no steam coming from it. Okay, he thinks. So he had been sitting in this chair for a while, and he had been drinking his tea. This was a long, peaceful activity. The focus is on the duration. He goes outside to look at the garden. The ground is wet, and there are puddles everywhere, but the rain has stopped. He looks at the sky and thinks, it had been raining all evening, but it stopped just before I arrived. The action of raining was happening for a long time in the past, and it was in progress up until the moment it stopped. So, we have two tenses that look back from the past. The past perfect simple, had written, focuses on the result of a completed action. The letter was on the table. The past perfect continuous, had been reading, focuses on the duration of an interrupted action. He was in the middle of the book. Part 3. The suspect's alibi. Putting it all together. The next day, Detective Miles interviews the main suspect. The suspect's name is Mr. Black. Mr. Black must provide an alibi. A story that proves he was somewhere else when the crime happened. Let's listen to his alibi and see how he uses these tenses to create his own timeline. Mr. Black says, I couldn't have done it, Detective. I was at the cinema last night at 9 p.m., the time of the crime. The movie had already started when I arrived at the theater. Miles thinks, okay, had already started, is past perfect simple. The movie started before he arrived. Mr. Black continues, I was late because I had been trying to find a parking spot for 20 minutes. The city was very busy. Miles thinks, interesting. Had been trying is past perfect continuous. So, the action of trying to find parking was in progress for a duration of 20 minutes, right up until the moment he finally arrived. The suspect adds one more detail. And before that, my car had broken down on the highway, so I had to call a mechanic. Miles analyzes this. Had broken down is past perfect simple. The car breaking down was a single completed action that happened before he started looking for parking. The suspect's alibi is a perfect story using these tenses. He described a sequence of events, all of which happened before the main past. Event, the time of the crime. By using these tenses correctly, he created a believable timeline. Now, Detective Miles has to find out if it is the true timeline. Part 4. Language focus. Now, let's move on to our language focus. First are 10 essential vocabulary words for today's investigation. Our first word is detective. A detective is a person who investigates and tries to solve crimes. For example, Detective Miles is the hero of our story today. Another example is, she loves reading detective novels. Our second word is to reconstruct. To reconstruct means to build or create something again, or to describe how an event happened. For example, the detective's job is to reconstruct the timeline of the crime. Another example is, the old building was carefully reconstructed. Our third word is timeline. A timeline is a plan or a line that shows the order in which events happened. For example, the past perfect tenses help us to create a clear timeline of the past. Another example is, he created a timeline of his life for the project. Next, we have victim. A victim is a person who has been attacked, injured, or killed as the result of a crime. For example, the detective tried to understand what the victim had been doing before the attack. Another example is, she was the victim of a robbery. Our fifth word is suspect. A suspect is a person who is believed to be guilty of a crime. For example, Mr. Black was the main suspect in the case. Another example is, the police have arrested a suspect. The sixth word is alibi. An alibi is proof that someone was in another place when a crime was committed. For example, the suspect had a strong alibi. Another example is, she needed a friend to confirm her alibi. Our seventh word is to interrupt. To interrupt means to stop an action, or a conversation by doing or saying something. For example, the killer's arrival interrupted the victim's quiet evening. Another example is, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have a question. Next, we have prior. Prior means existing or happening before something else in time or importance. For example, the past perfect describes a prior event in the past. Another example is, please finish your prior commitments before starting a new project. Our ninth word is duration. Duration is the length of time that something continues. For example, the past perfect continuous emphasizes the duration of an action. Another example is, what is the duration of the flight to New York? And our final word is sequence. A sequence is the order in which a series of events happen. For example, a good story has a clear sequence of events. Another example is, please put the historical dates in the correct sequence. Now for our grammar. Focus. The past, perfect and past, perfect continuous. Let's make a final clear comparison. The past perfect simple had plus past participle. Its job is to talk about a completed action that happened before another action in the past. It focuses on the result. Example. She had finished her homework when I called. The homework was complete. The past perfect continuous had plus been. Plus verbing. Its job is to talk about an ongoing action that was happening up until another action in the past. It focuses on the duration. Example. She had been studying for 3 hours when I called. The studying was in progress. Part 5. Practice tips for the 4 skills. Now, how can you practice using this grammar time machine? For listening, watch. The first 5 minutes of any detective show or movie, like Sherlock or CSI. Listen for how the detectives talk about what had happened before they arrived at the crime scene. You will hear the past perfect all the time. For speaking, tell your AI tutor a story about a time you were late for an important event, like a meeting or a flight. Use your voice. Try to use both tenses. For example, I was late for the meeting. I had been sitting in traffic for an hour. By the time I arrived, the meeting had already started. For reading, read a short mystery story online. Take 2 different colored highlighters. Highlight the simple past verbs in one color and the Past perfect verbs in another color. This will help you see how the author builds a clear timeline of events. And for writing, use your journal to write about a surprise you received. First, describe what you had been doing right before the surprise happened. Then, describe what someone else had already done to prepare the surprise. Part 6. Your next action today, you have unlocked the grammar time machine. You can now travel not just into the past, but into the past before the past. This is a sophisticated and powerful skill that will make your storytelling in English much richer, more detailed, and more professional. You can now create complex timelines and tell stories like a true investigator. As we conclude, let's quickly summarize our case. First, we followed Detective Miles and saw how the past perfect tenses are used to reconstruct a timeline of events. Second, we learned the key difference between the two. The past perfect simple is for a completed action in the deeper past, while the past perfect continuous is for the duration of an action in the deeper past. We also learned 10 new vocabulary words for our detective toolkit. As a review, those words were detective, to reconstruct, timeline, victim, suspect, alibi, to interrupt, prior, duration, and sequence. Now, I have a final puzzle for you. Think about yesterday. Before you went to sleep, what was one thing you had already done? Let's practice the past perfect in the comments section below. If you are committed to making this lesson a part of your life, show your energy by smashing that like button. Be a hero for a friend by sharing this video with someone you know who loves a good mystery. And to lock in your commitment to learning, subscribe and smash that notification bell so you don't miss our next grammar investigation. Remember, every great story is in the details and the timeline. Until next time, take care and happy learning.